Carlos? Yes, I'm hearing you. Yeah, but you have to come with your energy, man. You can't come on a Monday morning sounding like you never sleep. I didn't either. Good morning, Mr. George.
Yes, hi, good morning to you.
Are you ready?
Yes, indeed I am. Indeed I
Hey!
am.
All right, that's what I want to hear because I have some serious legal questions in us. So I hope you're ready for me.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so you're hearing me clearly, right? Because you
Yes,
know
I
me,
am.
I'm
I
always
am.
excited about these discussions. You would swear I won the lottery. All right, stand by for me. We're on a commercial break. We'll come to you in about a minute and a half.
Okay, sure.
Yes.
Good morning and welcome back to the Now Morning Show, where the seat is hot because Natalie is getting into the information surrounding the current state of affairs at the Police Service Commission. Joining us this morning in your spotlight, Natalie is ready to chat up Mr. Martin George, the former member of the Police Service Commission.
All right, we are back. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's the No Morning Show. Natalee Legore here, and we're so happy to have you with us. Now, this has been an ongoing saga for some time, and I remember the last time we spoke to Mr. George, funny enough, somehow we here knew we would have been here because we decided to do it in parts. It was like, okay, part one, part two, well, this is part three. Thank you all so much for sticking around for part three. Martin George, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning to you, Natalie, and good morning to your viewers on TTT.
How you feeling this morning? How you feeling? You got the entire commission to resign. You kept calling for the people resignation. Look them gone at them yard. How you feeling now?
Well, I mean, the point is there's no sense of elation to see a commission implode because, I mean, we always have to try to support our national institutions and our state structures. However, I think they had reached the point of no return, and it was clear that they could not continue anymore as their positions had become quite untenable in the national space. I think they ought to have done so earlier. They ought to have also come out and explained things a lot earlier. Because if you look at the scenario where the Prime Minister gave his press conference on Saturday, and he indicated that he had written to the commission indicating that he had a loss of confidence in the then commissioner of police. Now, the point is, in the public space, this has been mangled and twisted and tortured into, an unholy assertion of undue political influence. But by itself, it may not necessarily amount to political influence. And that's where the commission had a duty to come out and speak. Because I can tell you, Natalie, I sat on that commission for 9 years. I served 3 consecutive 3-year terms from 2010 to 2019. And during that time, we would receive lots and lots of information from persons in the public space, ordinary citizens, government officials, police officials, who will send information to us. And that's part of our role and function, because our role and function is oversight, monitoring, and control. So therefore, it's quite open to individuals to send information, even a prime minister, to send information. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And this is where the commission members ought to have come out and given some clarity before this snowballed into this problem. Where you can have an issue, just let me finish the point. Where you can have an issue is if, just based upon someone saying, well, in my judgment, I have lost confidence, and then you act on that. That is where the commission would err. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with somebody bringing that information to you. And if all the evidence that is attached is the prime minister or some high official saying, in my judgment, then all you would say is noted, because there's nothing you can do. If they bring concrete evidence with witness statements, signed, sworn declarations, the actual trail of evidence and all the indicia to show that, look, there is definitely something to investigate, then as a responsible commission, of course, you have to investigate that, and that is part of your statutory duty, and that has been confirmed by the Privy Council in the case Jamaicans for Justice. That's a 2019 case, a very recent case. It's a Privy Council case, and it is binding on us for the principles that the law lords espouse in the Privy Council. It's extremely important. I recommend, even incoming commissioners, those who are coming in to sit as new members of the Police Service Commission, I recommend them to read that Privy Council case, Jamaicans for Justice versus the Jamaican Police Service Commission.
Mr. George, I have so many questions. I think one of the first that comes to mind is, if we had Order 183, Section 4, that allows the Police Service Commission to act in a particular way, did it err in appointing Gary Griffith as acting Commissioner of Police, or even McDonald Jacobs as, acting Commissioner of Police? Did it err by using what was written in law to put these people in those positions?
Well, the fact of the matter is that that's the legislation they had to work with, so they followed the legislation. So in that regard, one cannot fault them if they followed the legislation, right? Because that's what laws are for. They're meant to be followed and, complied with. However, I was the first one saying, Natalie, you will recall, we discussed this some weeks ago, when I suggested that this whole imbroglio could have been avoided if they had instead resorted to using from the deputies that are there and appointing, well, the most senior one would have been McDonald Jacob, appointing him, of course, in the proper process as acting commissioner, right? But the point is, the law that they worked with, it turned out to be something that the court has now struck down in part. So therefore, you can't fault them for following the law in that regard.
Right. And let us look at the fact that we have now the, let me get back to a point that you raised before, which was that the Prime Minister shared with us on Saturday that he had written to the Police Service Commission to see that he had lost confidence in the Commissioner of Police at the time, Gary Griffith. That did not stop the PSC because, one, he made the order of merit list, and two, he was appointed as acting Commissioner of Police. So what does that tell you about all of these talks about political interference?
And that's the point I'm making. If it is that the Prime Minister had appended to his letter the elements of the evidence to trigger an investigation, then that would be a different scenario. I have not seen the letter. I am not privy to its content, so I can't say yay or nay. But if all that he said was, in my judgment, I have lost confidence in the Commissioner of Police, then that means nothing to an independent, robust-minded commission, because at the end of the day, the most I would reply is say, noted, and that's the end of it, because your opinion is irrelevant, with the greatest of respect. And I say this with all due deference. It's not that, one disregards the opinion or judgment of a prime minister, but in the carrying out of your exercise of your function as an independent service commission, you cannot be swayed by persons' personal opinions where they are trying, to convey that to you. And then if you act on that, then of course people will say you are influenced by it.
And so you know what the funny thing is? Sorry, you know the funny
by evidence. You investigate the evidence, and then based upon the evidence, you form your own independent judgment and discretion. So it appears that, on the face of it, if nothing more was provided and they continued their work as usual, I would think that they did not appear to do anything wrong in that regard.
Yeah. But for the past couple of weeks, even months, we've been blaming the Police Service Commission for all of this, but we'll get back to that. What is funny is that I'm going back to...
They're at fault in many ways. Yeah. Let's not forget that.
I don't doubt, but the thing is that as we say, if we're looking at the fact that they went with law to appoint somebody acting commissioner of police, or in two instances, the reality is that at least in that instance we have to look at where it fell down, and it seems as if it's not with the Police Service Commission as we would have thought initially, but we'll get back to that. I think what's even more funny here, Martin George, is that if you remember when changes were made to the legislation to say, okay, you did not need to get a firm to advertise on for the post of Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police, and that even when the legal notice 183 came up, people believed that the changes to that notice were being made in support of Gary Griffith. Am I incorrect in my recollection?
You remember how I described it the last occasion? I said, follow the trail of the breadcrumbs. Remember Hansel and Gretel? You follow the breadcrumbs and you see where they lead. And, it leads inexorably to the architect behind the legislation, and that's what you have to look at. Then, of course, you would have to ask yourself, well, what was the purpose and intent? Because when you do statutory interpretation, you have the purposive rule, you look at the purpose and intent behind the legislation, and I think that all will be revealed if we do that type of analysis.
All right, well, let us get to it. That's what we are here for. The architect behind the legislation is the Attorney General. And we have the courts ruling on it, and we even have the president sharing with us that she thought that it was bad legislation. So then how do we treat with that? Because as we said that the Police Service Commission acted according to law. But now and not for the first time or the second time, not with the AG, but we have seen laws being challenged. We have seen some struck down. We have seen different interpretations. So what do you think, if you had to make an educated guess, what do you think was the intent behind this piece of legal notice?
Well, the thing is, on the face, because the thing is, I don't engage in idle speculation or, anything of the sort. But on the face of it, it is clear that it allowed for something which was not hitherto, in the legislation. It allowed for you to be able to choose as an acting commissioner someone who is on contract or previously was on contract. So, of course, you analyze it, you ask yourself, okay, who was on contract or was previously is on contract. So in the circumstances, it would appear that the only candidate among those vying for it would have been the incumbent, So therefore, it seems to be basically allowing for the opportunity for such an appointment.
But how would that make any sense? Because on the one hand, right, I am just trying to follow the crumbs. How would that make sense? Because if we have a prime minister writing to the Police Service Commission a whole year before, and that legal notice came out after, that would seem contrary to what the Prime Minister is saying. Something would have to be amiss.
Well, the point is, Natalie, this may be above our pay grades, both you and I. It is clear that you have clearly identified the protagonists in this issue. And of course, that's something I would imagine they would sort out internally. But I think for a matter of national concern, and it's something that I have, made a call publicly for. And I mean, I will, it's not any circumstance that I targeting anyone, but I just thought that there ought to be some clarification coming from the Attorney General's office as to what was really the thinking behind it. I see that he has basically dug his heels in and has indicated that he may be appealing even that section, in the clause, section 4 of the legal notice 183, which I think everyone, has agreed is bad law, but I see that he said he may be appealing the judge's ruling in that regard. And, it raises lots of questions in the circumstance. And, it doesn't seem to me meritorious in any way whatsoever. However, you ask yourself, what would be the intent again behind appealing that and dragging out this whole shenanigans, all these shenanigans that surround this issue?
Martin George, I think one of the most pertinent questions now with the junction where we're at is, can Gary Griffith still be on that merit list based on all that we know now and based on what came out of the court ruling? Can he still be on the merit list when a new police service commission is installed?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a question of can he be or can't he be. I think it's a question of is he on the list or not? And that's the issue, because one would imagine from what has been put out there, although you've seen confusing, accounts of the process as to whether a merit list was submitted. We had one affidavit from one official in the DPA's office saying one thing. You had another affidavit where the acting DPA himself swore to something different. So I mean, it's unclear in that regard. But the fact of the matter is, it's a simple fact as to whether he's on the list or not. And we need the clarity on that. And I'll tell you why that's important.
What I'm trying to get at, Martin George, is would that merit list make sense at this point to do? Because with all that happened and with the fact that that police service commission, those members no longer exist, would the work that they had done before, previously, and with all that came out, would that still be valid?
Well, the thing is, I would think that there's absolutely no public confidence or trust left in that process that was embarked upon. So I think it would be a total farce to try to continue that process. And I sounded the alarm bell on that very early on. I said that the whole process has been tainted, it has been marred, it has been skewed, it has been mangled and twisted and crushed. There's no way anybody coming out of that tainted process can have the credibility of the population as far as any appointment goes. So I think the entire process must start over just by way of basic common sense. I don't think you need to be, a scientist to be able to make that conclusion.
Right. All right. Well, let us look at what happened over the weekend, where the opposition leader indicated that she's filing a motion to have the president investigated, and then, of course, the president breaking her silence, so to speak, and sharing her side of the details and admitting that, yes, she got a merit list, but the same day it was sent to President House, the same day it was recalled. Now, Gary Griffith is saying that is cataboil. He's never known that the PSC has the constitutional remit or the power to recall a merit list. So I think that there is another piece of the puzzle that we have to solve. But do you believe that what the opposition has signaled, that it is a fair game for the president to be investigated in all of this?
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, yes, it is possible to bring that type of motion to the parliament. But if you are a responsible, sober, mature, thinking leader, you would first ask yourself, okay, what are the chances of success? And if you know that there's little or no chance of success realistically, if you ask yourself also, is this sufficiently meritorious to impugn the office of the president? And you see, this is what I keep saying. We have to be very careful in this country.
Yeah.
You know, in the cut and thrust of the political guile, we have to be careful that we don't destroy our institutions. These constitutional institutions are the foundation of civilized society.
Yeah.
If they fall, then anarchy will reign. So we have to always be very careful. In the appropriate case, I would always say yes. If it is that something has to be investigated and a motion has to be brought, then of course bring it. But you ask yourself, do you have the evidence? If you understand me, you must have serious evidence sufficient to bring that type of motion. Otherwise, what's the point? You saw it recently with the attempt, to have President Trump removed from office in the U.S. when they knew they didn't have the votes, and yet still they went ahead. You ask yourself, what's the point of it when you really know that you don't have, sufficient votes?
Yeah.
In this case also, I don't think I have seen enough evidence to merit any such application or any such motion. And I say this with the greatest of deference to the opposition leader and the opposition in general, because of course they're entitled to do their work, they're entitled to oppose and challenge. But your opposing must be sensible, mature, rational, and in a way that you can make your point without seeking to destroy the country as part of the process.
And do you
and
believe,
that's what I'm very, very concerned about.
Do you believe
have to be very careful about that.
Do you believe that when the opposition do these things, that what he does can destroy these offices and institutions that we hold so dear?
But they can. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's the opposition alone that engages in this type of political gamesmanship. When the shoe is on the other foot, you would see the other party doing the same thing too. But the point is, we as the people, we are the ones who have to call upon them and ask them to be better than this. Do better for the country. Don't just, seek to make these statements for political gain or political mileage when you know that it can have such a devastating effect. You've seen the knock-on effect, with some very unfortunate and churlish and rather unpalatable comments that were made, in relation to the office of the president. And, this is not acceptable in any civilized society. I've always said, Natalee, we as Trinbagonians must learn to disagree without being disagreeable. You and I could have the most heated debate, but it doesn't mean that I have to attack and debase you personally. And that's where it always seems to go in Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in our parliament, of all places.
Yeah. Mr. George, we do have to leave it there, but I want to thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. And let us hope that Senator Naked learned a lesson from that insipid remark, those insipid remarks that he made against the president.
I thank you for being here, and good morning to you.
You're most welcome. Martin George, you're a former, legal mind, and of course, a former member of the Police Service Commission, 9 years. So definitely worth us always checking in with him regarding this event. But guys, let's see. Feel good moment, because I'm feeling really